Have you ever had one of those days when everything that can go wrong simply does? Well, welcome to my world. My name is Ren Frake. I'm 28 years old, and I just went viral on the internet as Omaha's most disastrous wedding crasher, and trust me, that wasn't my intention at all. It all started on what seemed like an ordinary Saturday morning. I was carrying a box full of handcrafted wedding invitations for a special client. Those beautiful invitations I make in my small home studio, you know? I work hard to turn each piece of paper into a small work of art. The problem is that sometimes my natural tendency for mishaps decides to show up at the most inconvenient moment possible. The resort was bustling with elegant people dressed in white and rose gold. Great, I thought, at least I accidentally matched the dress code. I confidently walked through the main entrance, following the signs that read, ceremony. Because obviously, where else would my client be waiting for her event invitations? That's when I realized something was very wrong indeed. The music started, a classic wedding march echoed through the garden, and a stunning bride appeared walking down the aisle. A bride who definitely wasn't my client. My heart sank when I realized I was in the middle of a real wedding, holding a box of invitations like some kind of unsolicited gift. Sorry, I whispered, trying to hide behind a decorative column, but it was too late. Some guests had already noticed my confused presence, and worse still, someone was filming everything with their phone. I could tell by their mischievous smiles that this would definitely end up on social media. I tried to leave discreetly, but my tendency for disasters wasn't finished yet. I tripped on the decorative fabric wrapping the column, and, in a sequence worthy of a romantic comedy, ended up knocking over a flower arrangement that was strategically positioned near the altar. The noise was impossible to disguise. All eyes turned to me. The bride stopped. The groom stopped. Even the music stopped. It was as if the entire world had decided to pause just to witness my moment of greatest public embarrassment. I was just looking for Mrs. Thompson, I mumbled, my voice coming out louder than intended due to nervousness. I have her invitations here. An elegant man in an impeccable suit approached with a gentle but clearly amused smile. I believe Mrs. Thompson is in the hall next door, he said, pointing the way with his hand. This is the Mitchell Davies ceremony. I felt my face heat up like a bell pepper. Thank you so much, I managed to articulate before practically running in the indicated direction, still carrying my box of invitations like a protective shield. But the worst was yet to come. When I finally found my real client and delivered the invitations, which, by the way, turned out beautiful, I discovered that the wedding incident was already being shared on social media with captions like "Wedding Crasher in Action" and "When you want to get married so badly you crash someone else's wedding." Emma, my best friend and roommate, was waiting for me at home with a smile that mixed amusement and pity. "Ren, honey," she said, showing me her phone, "you need to see this. You're famous." And that's how I became the involuntary star of one of Omaha's most shared videos that week. But what I didn't know was that all this confusion would be just the beginning of a story that would completely change my life. 3 days later, still trying to recover from virtual shame, Emma suggested we join a group hike at Chalco Hills. "You need to get out of the house and stop hiding," she insisted. "Besides, outdoor exercise is great for forgetting problems." And it was there, on a sunny Sunday morning, that destiny decided to play its most elaborate trick on me. Chalco Hills has always been my refuge when I need to organize my thoughts. There's something therapeutic about walking, surrounded by nature, feeling the fresh prairie breeze and hearing the songbirds. That Sunday, especially, I needed that peace to forget my newly acquired fame as a wedding crasher. Emma and I arrived early at the hiking group meeting point. There were about 15 of us, an interesting mix of ages and profiles, from adventurous retirees to young professionals looking for a healthy hobby. The guide, Mr. Peterson, a friendly man in his 60s, gave us basic instructions, and we began our journey. Everything was going perfectly well until I recognized a familiar voice behind me. It was the same voice that had helped me at the resort 3 days earlier, kindly directing me to the right place. My stomach tied in knots. Would he recognize me? I turned slowly and almost tripped again, this time over my own feet. It was him. The elegant man from the wedding, only now dressed more casually. Shorts, cotton t-shirt, hiking boots, and a cap that couldn't completely hide his incredible green eyes. Beside him, a beautiful golden retriever wagged its tail happily. "Hi," he said, with that same gentle smile. "Aren't you the invitation lady from the resort?" I felt my face heat up again. "Yes, that's me. And you're the gentleman who helped me find the right way." I tried to sound casual, as if running into people from my most embarrassing moment was completely normal. "Levi Harmon," he extended his hand, "and this here is Bourbon." "Ren Frake," I replied, shaking his hand and crouching down to pet the dog. "Bourbon is quite an elegant name for a golden." "My sister chose it," he laughed, "said it matches my taste for whiskey." "And you, do you have any pets that need formal introduction?" "I have a cat named Shakespeare. He's quite jealous and probably wouldn't approve of this conversation of ours." The response came naturally, and I was surprised by my own spontaneity. "Ah, so we have a classic dilemma, dog versus cat," Levi joked. "Bourbon here is very diplomatic. Maybe he can negotiate a peace treaty." Emma approached, clearly curious about my new company. I made introductions and soon discovered that Levi would be our hiking companion for the rest of the route. The group naturally reorganized, and we ended up walking side by side, talking about random subjects. I found out he owned an event company. Irony of fate, considering our first meeting. "Harmon and Sterling," he said, "specialized in luxury weddings and parties." "Wait," I stopped walking for a second. "You organize weddings and I crashed one of your events?" "Actually, that one wasn't mine," he laughed, "but I know the organizers well, and I can say your entrance was much more interesting than the ceremony itself." "Good to know I at least entertained someone with my misfortune," I replied sarcastically, but I was smiling. The conversation flowed naturally. He told me about his passion for hiking and water sports. I talked about my work with handcrafted invitations and my dream of having my own recognized studio in Omaha. It was strange how comfortable we felt with each other, as if we'd been friends for years. "Handcrafted invitations must be a lot of work," he commented, genuinely interested. "They are, but it's what I love doing. Each invitation is unique, has personality. It's different from those mass-printed ones everyone uses." "Must be. I see many invitations in my line of work, and I rarely find something truly special." I was starting to feel comfortable when Bourbon decided it was time for a water break. We stopped near a rest area, and that's when things got interesting. An elegant woman in her early 30s approached our group. She had that impeccable look typical of someone who frequents expensive salons and wears designer clothes to go hiking. Her eyes immediately fixed on Levi. "Levi, what a coincidence finding you here," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You didn't tell me you frequented this type of activity." "Hi, Victoria." His voice lost some of the warmth it had when speaking to me. "I'm trying to get out of the house more on weekends." Victoria looked me up and down, clearly evaluating my simple hiking outfit and my hair tied in a basic ponytail. "And who is your company?" "Ren Frake," I introduced myself, extending my hand politely. "Ah," she said without accepting the greeting. "Aren't you that girl from the video? The one who crashed the Mitchell-Davies wedding?" The mood changed instantly. I felt all the group's eyes turn to me, and the embarrassment returned with full force. "It was a misunderstanding," I managed to say. "Of course," Victoria smiled maliciously. "Misunderstandings happen, especially when someone wants attention." Levi frowned. "Victoria? No, it's okay," I intervened quickly. It really was a silly mistake on my part. I didn't want to create an uncomfortable situation for him. The rest of the hike was more tense. Victoria joined our group and monopolized Levi's attention with conversations about people and places I clearly didn't know. It was obvious they had a past, and equally obvious that she wasn't happy about my presence. When we reached the end of the trail, Levi approached me. "Ren, it was really good getting to know you better. Would you like to maybe grab coffee sometime?" Before I could answer, Victoria appeared beside him. "Levi, darling, you forgot we have that lunch today. Your mother is waiting." The moment dissolved. He seemed embarrassed but nodded politely. "Maybe another time," he said, and walked away with Victoria glued to his arm. Emma found me standing there watching them leave. "What happened?" "I think I just met his ex-girlfriend," I sighed, "and apparently she's not exactly my fan." But deep down, as we walked back home, I couldn't stop thinking about Levi's green eyes and the ease with which we talked. There was something there, a connection I couldn't ignore, even with all the complication that Victoria represented. What I didn't know was that this had been just the first battle of a war I didn't even imagine I was fighting. Monday arrived accompanied by an unpleasant surprise. Emma entered the kitchen where I was having coffee, phone in hand, and a worried expression. "Ren, you need to see this," she said, showing me the screen. It was the same wedding video, but now with different narration. The female voice, which I immediately recognized as Victoria's, dramatically explained how certain people do everything to get attention, including crashing events of respectable Omaha families. The video had thousands of views and not-so-kind comments. "She did this last night," Emma said, visibly irritated, "right after the hike. I felt a mixture of anger and humiliation." "Why would she do this?" "Because she realized you and Levi hit it off," Emma replied, as if it were obvious, "and clearly she hasn't gotten over him." I spent the day trying to ignore notifications on my phone. Some clients even cancelled consultations saying they didn't want to be associated with controversies. It was unbelievable how a simple misunderstanding had turned into a virtual snowball. I was in my studio, trying to focus on a particularly delicate invitation, when the doorbell rang. Shakespeare, my cat, ran to hide. He always did that with strangers. I opened the door and almost fell backward. It was Levi, holding a bouquet of wildflowers and with a genuinely worried expression. "Hi," he said, a bit hesitant. "Can I come in? I need to talk to you." "Of course," I replied, still in shock. "Please, come in." He handed me the flowers. Simple daisies, but beautiful. "I saw the video," he said, straight to the point, "and I want you to know I had nothing to do with it." "I know," I replied automatically, because somehow I really knew. "It was Victoria, wasn't it?" It was. His voice had a tone of irritation. "I talked to her this morning. She said she was just clarifying the facts, but we both know that's not true." I offered coffee, and we sat in my small living room. Shakespeare appeared curiously, evaluating the visitor from afar. "Ren, I'd like to explain some things," Levi began. "Victoria worked for me for 2 years. We had a brief relationship that ended almost a year ago. She's always had difficulty accepting that it's over." "You don't owe me explanations," I said, nervously fidgeting with my cup. "But I want to give them," he insisted, "because I really enjoyed talking to you yesterday. And I don't want misunderstandings to ruin the chance for us to get to know each other better." There was something in the sincerity of his voice that completely disarmed me. "The video is causing some problems with my work," I admitted. "I can imagine, and I'm so sorry about that." He seemed genuinely distressed. "Can I help in any way?" "No, thank you. It will pass." I tried to sound more confident than I felt. We spent the entire afternoon talking. He told me about his company, about how he had built everything from scratch after graduating in business administration. I talked about my dreams, my fears of not being taken seriously in the luxury market. "Are your invitations real art?" he asked, looking at some pieces I had displayed. "Do you think so?" I asked, genuinely curious about his professional opinion. "I think they're unique. And originality is something rare in my field. That's when Shakespeare decided it was time to cause the first disaster of the feline-canine duo." He jumped from the shelf directly onto Levi's lap, knocking over the coffee cup onto some sketches that were on the table. "Shakespeare!" I exclaimed, running to save the drawings. It's okay," Levi laughed, petting the cat who was now stretching comfortably in his lap. "At least he approved of my presence. He never does this with strangers," I said, amazed. "Usually he disappears when there are visitors. Maybe I passed the feline test." We were laughing about the incident when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Ren Frake? This is Marcus Coleman from Coleman Events. I'd like to talk to you about a work opportunity." I looked at Levi, who frowned upon hearing the name. "What kind of opportunity?" I asked. "How about we meet tomorrow to talk in person? I have a very interesting proposal for a designer of your talent." I scheduled the meeting, but when I hung up, Levi was visibly worried. "Ren, I need to warn you about Marcus Coleman," he said seriously. "He's my direct competitor, and he doesn't have a very ethical reputation." "What do you mean?" "He's tried several times to harm my company. Hiring employees just to get access to information, sabotaging events, spreading rumors." Levi seemed genuinely concerned. "Just be careful, okay? Do you think he contacted me because of you?" "It's possible, especially after yesterday's video." The afternoon that had started so well suddenly filled with tension. Levi left shortly after, but not before giving me his personal card. "Anything you need, call me," he said. That night, I talked at length with Emma about the situation. "It's too much of a coincidence," she agreed. "A competitor calling you right after you appeared with Levi on the trail. But what if it's a real opportunity? My work isn't exactly booming after the viral video." "True, but promise you'll be careful?" "I promise." The next morning, I dressed carefully for the meeting with Marcus. I chose a professional but not overdone outfit. I wanted to make a good impression without seeming desperate. Coleman Events office was impressive, located on one of Omaha's busiest avenues. Marcus Coleman was a man in his 40s, well-dressed and with an easy smile. Too easy. Way too easy. "Ren, what a pleasure to meet you in person," he said, shaking my hand for a slightly uncomfortable amount of time. "I saw your work online and was impressed." "Thank you," I replied, trying to maintain professional composure. "I have a very special event in 2 weeks. A wedding from an important family, generous budget, and I'd like you to create all the stationery." The proposal was tempting, very tempting. The offered amount was 3 times more than I normally charged. "It's quite a tight deadline," I observed. "Yes, that's why the financial compensation is so attractive," he smiled. "And I'm sure a talented designer like you won't have any problems." Throughout the conversation, he made subtle comments about certain event companies in Omaha that think they're superior and how important it is to work with real people, not artificial snobbery. It was obvious he was referring to Levi and his company. "Can I think about the proposal?" I asked finally. "Of course, but I need an answer by tomorrow. Opportunities like this don't come every day." I left there with a confused head. The offer was really good, and I needed the money. But there was something in Marcus' tone that bothered me, and Levis' words echoed in my mind. I was so lost in thought that I almost didn't see Victoria approaching me as I left the building. "Hello, Ren," she said, with that fake smile that was becoming familiar. "What a coincidence finding you here." "Hi, Victoria," I replied politely. "I heard you had a meeting with Marcus. How interesting." Her eyes gleamed with malice. "It's always good to see people knowing their place, don't you think?" And it was at that moment that I realized maybe Levi was right about much more than I had imagined. Victoria's insinuation kept echoing in my head for the rest of the day. People knowing their place. What exactly did she mean by that? And why was she so well informed about my movements? I went home determined to make a decision about Marcus' proposal, but first I needed advice. I called Grandma Rose, who had always had a sixth sense for ill-intentioned people. "Sweetheart," she said in her characteristic dramatic voice, "when something seems too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. That man there smells like trouble." "But Grandma, it's a real money opportunity." "Dirty money brings bad luck. she declared categorically. And another thing, did that handsome boy from the trail contact you today? He did, Grandma. Then pay attention to what Grandma's going to tell you. A man who shows up at your door with flowers after defending you is a man worth having. A man who shows up with a too-good proposal when you're in need is a man who's plotting something. As always, Grandma Rose had her own logic, but it made sense in a strange way. That night, I made my decision. I called Marcus the next morning. Marcus, it's Ren. Thank you for the proposal, but I'll have to decline. There was a pause on the other end of the line. May I ask why? Is it about money? I can improve the offer. It's not about money. I just feel it's not the right project for me at this time. I see. His voice cooled visibly. I hope you don't regret this decision, Ren. The way he said my name gave me chills. I hung up with the feeling I had just escaped a trap. 2 hours later, Levi appeared at my door again, but this time with a worried expression. Ren, we need to talk, he said, entering quickly. I heard you refused Marcus' proposal. How did you know that? I literally just hung up with him. Because he called me right after, saying I had manipulated you to refuse the offer. Levi ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. And there's more. Victoria posted another video this morning. My heart sank. What did she say now? He showed me his phone. It was a video of her talking about certain people who take advantage of successful businessmen's goodwill and how some women use false charm to try to climb in life. She didn't mention names, but it was clear she was talking about me. This can't be happening, I murmured, feeling anger grow inside me. Ren, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have warned you about Marcus. Now it seems I really interfered with your decision. No, you did right warning me, I replied, trying to stay calm. I refused the proposal because I felt something was wrong, not because of you. Even so, this is getting out of control. He sat on the sofa looking tired. Victoria is obsessed with separating us before we even have a chance to get to know each other properly. Maybe she's right, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Maybe we really are from very different worlds. Levi looked at me with an expression that mixed surprise and hurt. Do you really believe that? I don't know, I admitted. Your ex-employee hates me. Your family probably wouldn't approve of me. And now I'm becoming the official villain of Omaha's social media. Maybe it would be better for you to stay away. And if I don't want to stay away? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with a tension I didn't know how to handle. That's when Shakespeare decided it was time for the second feline intervention of the week. He jumped from the window, directly onto the table, where I had left some invitation mock-ups to dry, knocking over paint pots and spreading glitter everywhere. Shakespeare, no! I shouted, running to minimize the disaster. Levi helped me clean up, but when we were in the middle of the cleaning operation, the doorbell rang. It was an elegant woman, about 50 years old, with that air of superiority that only very wealthy people can cultivate. Good afternoon, she said, looking over me as if I was slightly inferior. Am Margaret Harmon, Levi's mother? Could I speak with you? My stomach dropped. His mother, here, in my messy house, with glitter in my hair and paint on my hands. Mother? Levi appeared behind me, clearly surprised. What are you doing here? I came to meet a friend, said Margaret, entering without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes surveyed my simple apartment with an interest that clearly wasn't admiration. Please, have a seat, I managed to say, indicating the recently cleaned sofa. Margaret sat with the posture of someone accustomed to being served. Shakespeare, never missing an opportunity to be inconvenient, chose that moment to rub against her legs, leaving fur on her expensive pants. How interesting, she said, gently pushing the cat away. Mother, you shouldn't have come here like this, Levi said, visibly embarrassed. Nonsense, dear. I just wanted to meet the young woman who has caused so much buzz in our family. The way she said buzz made me realize that Margaret Harmon knew exactly about Victoria's videos. Mrs. Harmon, I began, trying to maintain dignity, if it's about the videos that circulated online. "Oh, don't worry about that, dear," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "These things pass, but I must say I'm concerned about my son's sudden interest in, how can I put it, different social circles." The insinuation was clear. I wasn't suitable for her son. "With all due respect, Mom," I said, feeling Grandma Rose's courage running through my veins, "I didn't seek out your son. We met by chance, on a trail." Of course," Margaret waved her hand as if shooing away a fly. "But you understand that Levi has responsibilities. The company, the family, social position. He needs someone who complements his life, not complicates it." "Mother, enough," Levi said firmly. "You've crossed the line." "It's okay," I intervened, standing up. "Your mother is just protecting you, Levi, and maybe she's right." Margaret smiled, satisfied. Levi looked at me as if I had just slapped him. "Ren, no, seriously, thank you for the visit, Mrs. Harmon, and thank you for making things clear." Margaret stood up, smoothing her pants. "What a sensible young woman. I'm sure you'll find someone more suitable to your level." After they left, Levi giving me distressed looks while being practically dragged by his mother, I collapsed on the sofa. Shakespeare came to curl up in my lap, as if he knew I needed comfort. Emma came home an hour later and found me still there, hugging the cat. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." I told her everything, refusing Marcus' proposal, Victoria's new video, the unexpected visit from Levi's mother. "That woman has incredible nerve," Emma said, indignant. "Who does she think she is to come here and humiliate you?" "Emma, maybe she's right. Maybe I really am not suitable for his world. Ren Frake, listen to me carefully." Emma sat in front of me, holding my shoulders. "You are an incredible, talented, independent and strong woman. If he can't see that, or if his family can't, the problem isn't yours. But, no buts. You know what you're going to do? You're going to focus on your work, live your life, and if this man has any sense, hell come after you. And if he doesn't, at least you found out before getting more involved." That night, I made a decision. I would concentrate on my work and forget Levi Harmon. After all, I'd only known him for a week. I could be in love with someone he'd known for so little time, right? Wrong, completely wrong. Because when I woke up the next morning and saw that he hadn't tried to contact me, I felt an emptiness in my chest that told me exactly the opposite. But pride is a powerful thing, and mine was too hurt to admit that. 3 weeks had passed since Margaret Harmon's visit, and I had managed to build an almost normal routine. Almost. Because every time I passed by Chalco Hills or saw a golden retriever on the street, my heart would involuntarily accelerate. Emma was right about one thing. Focusing on work did me good. I got 3 new clients through referrals, and my studio was working at full capacity. The viral episode had lost strength, and people started seeking me out for the quality of my work, not for my fame as a wedding crasher. It was on a Thursday morning that everything changed again. I was finishing a particularly delicate invitation when my phone rang. It was Sophia, a girl I didn't know. "Ren? My name is Sophia. I'm an event coordinator at Harmon and Sterling. I really need your help." My heart stopped for a second. "From Harmon and Sterling?" "Yes. We had a catastrophe with tomorrow's event. The stationery supplier left us hanging at the last minute, and the wedding is for one of Omaha's most important families. Levi, he said you do incredible work." "He said that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "He did, and honestly, you're our only hope. I know it's last minute, but could you do at least the basic elements? Menu, ceremony program, table cards." It was a tempting and terrifying proposal at the same time. Tempting because it meant working at a high-level event. Terrifying because it was Levi's company. "What's the deadline?" "It needs to be ready by tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon. I know it's impossible, but it's not impossible," I heard my voice saying before my mind fully processed it. "It's tight, but not impossible." "Really? Oh my God, you're an angel." We arranged the details, and Sophia came to pick up the event specifications at lunchtime. She was a nice girl, about 26 years old, with a clumsy but efficient way about her. "Can I ask something?" she said while organizing the papers. What happened between you and Levi? He's been kind of strange lately. Strange how? More serious, more closed off. And he never mentions trails or outdoor activities anymore. Grace, his sister, says he's dwelling on something. I felt a pang in my chest. Nothing much happened. We just realized we're very different. Sophia looked at me with that expression of someone not buying the story. If you say so. But between us, I've never seen him as interested in someone as he was in you. In fact, he was the one who suggested your name when the supplier left us hanging. He did. Said you were the best designer he knew, and that if anyone could save the event, it would be you. I spent the rest of the day and all night working. Shakespeare kept me company, lying on the table between papers and materials. I created delicate but elegant pieces, with a soft color palette and gold details. It was my best work to date. At 3 p.m. the next day, Sophia came to pick everything up. "Ren, this is perfect," she exclaimed, admiring each piece. "You really saved our lives. I'm glad you liked it." "Liked it? I loved it. Would you like to come to the event tonight? As our special guest?" Levi said it would be a pleasure to have you there. My heart raced. He said that? He did. And between us, I think you two need to talk. It was a terrible idea. I knew it was a terrible idea. But at 7 p.m, I was getting ready in the most beautiful dress I owned. A simple but elegant navy blue that Emma had lent me. The event was at the Omaha Country Club, one of the city's most luxurious venues. When I arrived, I was impressed by the ballroom's transformation. It was a dream wedding, everything in shades of gold and white, with my invitations and materials perfectly integrated into the decoration. "Ren," Sophia appeared beside me, radiant. "You came. How wonderful." "Everything looks beautiful, Sophia. You all did incredible work. The credit is ours, but the stationery is pure art. Several guests have already asked who made it." I was admiring the floral arrangements when I felt a familiar presence behind me. I turned, and there he was. Levi, impeccable in a black tuxedo, with those green eyes that had haunted my dreams for the past weeks. "Hi," he said with a hesitant smile. "Hi," I replied, trying to sound casual. "The event is beautiful. Congratulations. The credit is yours too. Your work saved everything." We stood there in the middle of the party with 1,000 things to say and no idea how to start. "Ren, That's when chaos happened. Out of nowhere, the sound system failed, the lights started flickering, and I noticed that some of the central arrangements were collapsing. It was sabotage, and I was pretty sure who was responsible. "What's happening?" Levi asked, already switching into problem-solving mode. "Someone sabotaged the event," I said, my mind working quickly. "Levi, do you have emergency materials backstage?" "I do, but do you trust me?" He looked me in the eyes. "Always." And that's how I spent the next hour transforming what could have been a total disaster into an unforgettable celebration. I used emergency fabrics to create new centerpieces, reorganized the lighting with candles, and created an intimate atmosphere that turned out even more beautiful than the original. The guests were enchanted by the last-minute change that created a more romantic and cozy environment. What they didn't know was that we were improvising everything. Levi worked beside me as if we'd been a team for years. Our timing was perfect. We anticipated each other's needs, and together we transformed a crisis into an opportunity. When everything was working perfectly again, we finally had a moment to breathe. "How did you know it was sabotage?" he asked. "I saw Victoria leaving the back of the ballroom right before everything went wrong," I replied. "And frankly, after 3 weeks dealing with her games, I recognized the style." "Victoria did this?" "I'm pretty sure. But we can't prove it." Levi ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "This has to stop, Ren. She's going too far." "I agree. But for today, we saved the wedding. That's what matters." He looked at me with an expression that mixed admiration, gratitude, and something deeper. "You're incredible. The way you thought fast, how you transformed everything." "We transformed everything," I corrected. "It was teamwork." "Ren," he said, approaching, "about what happened with my mother." "Levi, you don't need to explain anything. I do, because I couldn't stop thinking about you these 3 weeks. And because today, seeing you in action, I confirmed what I already knew. You're not just talented, you're extraordinary. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. But your family, my family will have to accept my choices, he said firmly. And I choose you, Ren, if you'll give me a chance. I was about to respond when Sophia interrupted us, radiant. Guys, you won't believe this. The bride was so impressed with the creative replanning that she wants to hire you both to organize her sister's anniversary party next month. And 3 guests have already asked for Ren's contact to plan their weddings. I looked at Levi, who was smiling in that way that made my stomach do flips. So, he said, how about we start our professional partnership with dinner to discuss future projects, of course. Of course, I replied, smiling back. Purely professional. But we both knew there was nothing professional about the looks we were exchanging. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I felt that maybe, just maybe, things could work out. Epilogue. 6 months later, I was once again at a Harman and Sterling event. But this time, not as an emergency savior, but as an officially recognized partner of the company, which now went by Harman and Frake Luxury Events. The studio of my dreams had become reality in a way I never imagined. Not alone, as I had always planned, but alongside someone who believed in my talent as much as I did. Nervous? Levi asked, adjusting my bow tie. Because yes, I was wearing a tuxedo too, coordinating with him. A little, I admitted. It's our first event as official partners, and it's going to be perfect, he said, giving me a quick kiss on the forehead. Like always, tonight's wedding was special for several reasons. First, because it was the event that would definitively consolidate our reputation as a duo. Second, because I had created every detail of the stationery with special care. And third, because among the guests were all the important people from our story. Grandma Rose was radiant at a table near the altar, making audible comments about how her granddaughter had found a real prince. Beside her, Grandma Dorothy responded with equal enthusiasm that her grandson had found a princess worthy of him. The two had become inseparable friends after meeting at an engagement party we organized. They spent Sundays together planning our future and making bets about when Levi would finally propose to me. Jake, my brother, was on the dance floor trying to impress Grace Harman with his questionable dancing skills. The two had started dating 3 months ago, to everyone's general amusement. Emma was chatting animatedly with Sophia about expanding the business to other Midwest cities, and Margaret Harman, well, Margaret had completely surprised me. 2 weeks after the sabotaged event, she showed up at my studio with an unexpected proposal. "Ren," she said without beating around the bush, "I need to apologize for what I said the last time we met." I almost fell off my chair. Apologize? Victoria came to see me after that disastrous event of hers. She confessed that she had lied about several things, including about you. And after seeing how you saved the wedding and how radiant my son was working beside you, she sighed. I realized I was wrong. "Mrs. Harman." "Margaret," she corrected me. "And I'd like to make a proposal. How about we organize a charity tea together for the institution I chair? It would be a way to officially introduce you to our social circle." That's how I discovered that Margaret Harman, behind all that aristocratic pose, was an intelligent and fair woman who was simply protecting her son the way she thought was right. Now she was in the front row, using one of my invitations as a fan, and commenting to her friends about how her daughter-in-law had exceptional talent. Daughter-in-law. She had started calling me that last week, to my embarrassment and secret joy. "What are you thinking about?" Levi asked, following my gaze around the party. "About how funny life is," I replied. 6 months ago, I crashed a wedding by mistake and thought my life was over. Today, I'm organizing weddings, and my life has never been more complete. "You didn't crash a wedding," he smiled. "You crashed into my life, and I'm glad you did." Cheesy, I joked, but my heart melted a little. "And it's going to get even cheesier," he said, suddenly looking nervous. "Why?" I asked, but he was already kneeling. My heart literally stopped. "Ren Frake," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket, "you crashed into my life in the most disastrous way possible, messed up all my plans, made me question everything I thought I knew about myself." "This isn't sounding very romantic," I murmured, but I was smiling and crying at the same time, and made me realize that I don't want to live another day without you. Will you marry me? The entire party had stopped to watch. Grandma Rose was crying dramatically. Grandma Dorothy was applauding. Emma was shouting, "Say yes!" And even Shakespeare and Bourbon, who had become best friends after some incidents involving destroyed plants, seemed to be paying attention. "Levi Harmon," I said, "are you sure you want to marry the woman who went viral on the internet as a wedding crasher?" "I do," he smiled. "I want to marry the most courageous, talented, and stubborn woman I know, and who, incidentally, organizes the most beautiful weddings in Omaha." "Then yes," I said, kneeling in front of him. "Yes, I accept marrying you, but only if you promise our wedding will have the most beautiful stationery I've ever created." "I promise," he said, kissing me right there in the middle of the dance floor, while everyone applauded. And that's how the woman who crashed a wedding by mistake ended up getting her own happy ending. Oh, and about Victoria? Well, she tried to open her own event company after the sabotage fiasco. It lasted 3 months. Apparently, being malicious doesn't compensate for lack of real talent. Marcus Coleman also had his problems. We discovered he was really trying to sabotage competing companies, and some of his victims joined together to sue him. Coleman Events closed its doors 6 months later, but those are other stories. My story ends here at a beautiful wedding, beside the man I love, doing the work I adore, surrounded by the people who matter most. And every time someone asks me about the secret to success, I answer, sometimes you need to crash a few weddings to find your own happy ending.